steps are cool at dawn. Olive leaves still hold the night. Smoke is curling slow and thin. Names I whisper to the light. Sing, oh, sing to the stones and sky. Let the old words rise. Let the old words rise.
Well, so folkens, welcome back to another video. Today we are heading into part 2 of the Jugurthine War with House of History. Last episode, I don't know, I was pretty confused over like how strong the Roman cavalry was, or how weak the Numidian cavalry had become, and also some of the tactics. I think they kind of underutilized a lot of the soldiers in the wrong way. Yeah, I think Rome deserved that victory pretty much. So we're heading into part 2. Let's see how this is going to go.
On an early morning in 106 BC, mist surrounded the Romans quartering nearby the Numidian city of Cirta. Their campaign season had ended, and they looked back on a fruitful, though perhaps a bit quiet campaign. The Roman commander Marius wanted to get his soldiers to their winter quarters as soon as possible. He told a few scouts to ensure there weren't any significant dangers heading towards them. He was aware his adversary, Numidian King Jugurtha, concluded an alliance with the neighboring king of the Mauri, Bocchus. It doubled hostile forces in the region. Suddenly, he heard his scouts shouting as they ran towards the Roman camp.
Oh,
In the distance, Marius saw a sight that terrified him, and he hastily began shouting orders at his men. Jugurtha and Bocchus rode at the head of an army which dwarfed his. There was no time to prepare appropriately.
and they seem pretty exposed here. It's a pretty lackluster camp they actually have.
As the first arrows hit the
I'm used to like seeing like they had like these almost like city-like camps with
ground
defenses.
before him, he knew the battle would soon commence. The war against Numidian King Jugurtha had been waging on since 112 BC. Several armies sent by Rome tried
Damn, are we already 6 years in? Wow.
and failed to defeat the rogue king. After finally earning a victory at Mutul River, Commander Metellus continued capturing towns and fortresses to prevent Jugurtha from having a solid strategic footing in his lands.
Okay. There are no dates I can see.
He left behind small Roman units to maintain control wherever his main army wasn't. Jugurtha understood if he could not beat them in battle, he would have more success harassing and ambushing small Roman contingents.
Okay, so the last couple of years has only just been like minor guerrilla warfare battles. Okay, then kind of makes sense why he jumped. Like,
So Metellus split his army into two, with Marius commanding one half. Both armies shadowed each other, preventing Jugurtha from ambushing any stray Roman units. In response, Jugurtha burned crops and poisoned water sources. Metellus did not feel for fighting a prolonged.
Yeah, I heard a lot about the scorched earth military tactic. I mean, I think it's something that Russia did too.
Battle against an invisible enemy, and he laid siege to Zama to lure Jugurtha out. A group of Roman deserters warned the rogue king who was preparing the defense of Zama. Duly warned, he retreated into the hills with his cavalry. A minor skirmish between Jugurtha and Marius followed later that month. As the campaigning season ran to an end, there was no end in sight for the war. Metellus tried to use diplomacy to broker peace with Jugurtha, but to no avail.
Really?
Meanwhile, Metellus's popularity in Rome ensured him to lead another year of campaigning in Africa. However, his
Wild that he is like not accepting peace terms, not even like just having a chat with Rome.
own ranks weren't too enthusiastic about the commander. Despite many deserters at the lower level, the main danger was personified by his deputy, Gaius Marius. Marius was convinced he could do a better job and quickly wrap up the war. In winter, he requested Metellus to return to Rome to stand for consul. Metellus initially refused, but after multiple intrigues, he allowed Marius to depart to get rid of him. He wouldn't stand a chance to get elected anyway. He wasn't even of Roman noble origin, but he was
Really?
Italian. As the campaigning season began in 108 BC, the Romans once again invaded
I'm
Numidia.
still kind of shocked that like because like, Rome has controlled Italy for the entirety of Italy now for over 100 years. That they still see like the other Italian tribes as not Roman is pretty wild. Like they have like this caste system. That's pretty insane.
Though no comprehensive sources survive, it is clear Metellus' army besieged the fortress of Thala, capturing it to
I
get
wonder when that actually changed because I guess maybe it doesn't because like yeah it kind of will because I don't think I think like I heard like Roman emperors being like from different territories, so probably changed in like the empire period. Probably also why a lot of places were seemed pretty fine. Just they went from republic to empire. Probably because like a lot of people, conquered people, and like again Italians too, kind of felt like they were being left out. Maybe.
together with most of Jugurtha's treasury. Besides this disaster, there are barely any details available of this campaign. As the season ended, things did not look good for Jugurtha.
Indeed.
But when he was at his lowest point, did things turn around. He
Okay.
managed to attain an alliance with the Mauri and Gaetulians to the west and south.
Trillions.
These supplied
Really, that tribes longer down in the Sahara. How do they survive in that area? Damn.
ample soldiers. Especially King Bocchus of the Mauri felt Jugurtha was a less threatening neighbor than the Romans. The fact Jugurtha promised him a portion of his kingdom for his help probably influenced his decision. This alliance of two kings re-invaded Numidia and laid siege to the capital of Cirta, but this new alliance was the least of Metellus' worries. As he camped nearby Cirta, he received
I'm still really like, how do people survive in that heat? Like, I live in Denmark, and I gotta say, if we hit like 24, 26 degrees, I am staying in the shadows for the rest of the day. Okay, it's too hot for me.
of Rome. Marius was elected consul, but he was also elected commander against Jugurtha.
Really?
To Metellus, this felt nothing short of betrayal. Unfortunately, sources do not reveal what happened next, but what is for sure is that the siege of Cirta did not end in victory. When Marius returned to Roman Africa and assumed command of the army, Metellus refused to meet with him to hand over command, counter to Roman tradition.
Okay.
Marius brought over a sizable army from Italy, increasing the Roman numbers significantly. Perhaps
How many are
ironically,
dealing
Marius continued with a strategy which was very similar to that of Metellus. He laid sieges to cities, towns, and forts, capturing Jugurtha's primary treasury house, located near the Mauretanian border. Bocchus and Jugurtha separately roamed around Numidia, actively avoiding the Romans. As the population became alienated and Marius's army continued seizing strategic objectives, Jugurtha desperately required Bocchus's aid. The Maori king avoided the Romans even more than Jugurtha, though, mainly because he wasn't sure which outcome of the war would benefit him most. However, when Jugurtha offered him 1/3 of his kingdom, he was sure. In response,
Really?
Bocchus marched a large army of Maori cavalry.
Yo, Jugurtha has screwed up. Dude. So, he's fighting Rome for more territory, and he's like so desperate now that the territory he actually gained from killing his brother, he's now giving to another kingdom just for them to save his ass. Wow. You deserve to lose all your territory.
To Numidia from the west. Jugurtha's main force was able to link up with them. Here is where ancient sources conflict a little. For example, Orosorius claims Marius was laying siege to Cirta preceding this battle. However, Sallust agrees it is highly unlikely. Around this time of the war, Cirta was still in Jugurthan hands, mainly because he had been evading the Romans for most of the campaigns, and the Romans made it their goal to capture as many cities and strongholds as possible. At any rate, both accounts agree on the location of the battle, close by Cirta. As Marius and his Roman army quartered close by Cirta.
Oh, so that makes this even more pathetic. That this is the kind of camp they have if they're besieging a city, or at least close to cities. Like you could like made a proper camp. Like
He deployed scouts to keep an eye on potential ambushes by Jugurtha.
yeah,
He wanted
smart.
to get to his winter quarters as soon as possible. Unfortunately, there are no numbers available for the size of the Roman army, although it likely numbered between 30 and 40,000 men, both cavalry and infantry. As soon as a few of
Damn.
his scouts informed the commander a Jugurthine army indeed was closing in on,
That's pretty dangerous to have that many soldiers in Namibia when Jugurtha is using squads earth tactics. Like,
and then streams arose from the distance. The enemy was closer than anticipated. Before the Roman commanders could order their troops in formation,
Oh,
the
no.
combined Maori and Gaetulian cavalry charged at the Romans.
oh,
This army outnumbered the Romans at least 2-1. Instead of a frontal charge, many horsemen
Yo.
maintained their distance from the Roman camp, pelting the legionaries with javelins. The Romans, in turn, quickly took to arms and rushed to take their formations. The Roman cavalry mounted their horses to launch a countercharge. Meanwhile, some Maori cavalry charged into the Romans, although they harnessed the typical lack of strategy the
Damn.
Romans became accustomed to from their enemies.
okay.
But even though the Romans were a disciplined army, a real formation to counter the ambush had not yet been taken, Sallust describes. The combat was more like that of an attack of brigands than a battle. Without standard,
Yeah, how good can... I kind of wondered about this. I've seen a lot of battles where the cavalry kind of just charges in, where I'm like, the Romans have like shield wars and stuff. Like, how good are these light infantry units, the cavalry units against the Romans? Don't seem to be. I wouldn't think you're that effective, but they have brought in some W's actually. But I don't really see. I can understand like the medieval time with the huge lance thing that's like insanely long and heavy.
and in disorder, horse and foot massed together. Some gave ground, others slew their opponents. Many who were bravely fighting against the enemy were surrounded from the rear. Valor and arms were not sufficient protection against a foe who was superior in numbers and attacked every side. At last, the Romans, both the raw recruits and the veterans, who as such were skilled in warfare if the nature of the ground brought any of them together, formed a circle, thus protecting themselves on every side and presenting an orderly front to the attack.
Again, why not outflank them? Like, I kind of feel like the Numidian has really fallen off like war tactics.
Of the enemy.
Damn.
The soldiers who did not see direct combat rushed to parts of the line which required reinforcement.
Ooh.
The battleground was scattered, as was customary whenever the Romans engaged Jugurtha's army. Some soldiers threw rocks at the Romans, others pelted them with javelins, and yet others charged at them. Marius and his bodyguard moved behind Roman legionaries fighting, shouting encouraging words, and motivating the men to fight. When his shouts were drained out, instead Marius simply joined the fight to lead by example.
Nice.
The fighting went on for several hours like this. By the time the day ended, the Romans were unpleasantly surprised by Jugurtha's army not slowing down their attack one bit. Likely, this was caused by Jugurtha convincing his soldiers that darkness would be advantageous to them. Understanding their adversaries were willing to continue the fight throughout the night, Marius rapidly adapted his battle plan. There were 2 hills close by the battleground. Marius ordered his deputy Lucius Cornelius Sulla and the
Sulla, I heard that name before.
cavalry to seize the hill with the spring on top. Then, together with his infantry, he made an effort to reach the other hill. The bulwark of Romans pushed through their adversaries, climbing the hill while fending off attacks. Not being able to seize the hills, Jugurtha's army understood their unfavorable position and the immense costs of attacking the Romans. Finally, the night turned quiet as Jugurtha's army set up camp on the elevated ground in front of the 2 Roman hills.
Damn.
Scattered tents and fires illuminated the plain. Jugurtha's army could not defeat the Romans, but meanwhile, the Romans were trapped on the hills, unable to break out. Marius ordered his men to keep completely quiet throughout the night. Usually night watches used audible signals to communicate, but even they were forbidden from making noise. Then, around the fire, Marius and his commanders planned the counterattack to launch at sunrise. Throughout the night, Jugurtha's soldiers kept a close look at the encamped Romans. Finally, at dawn, as the sun rose, they noticed movement. Exhausted from a long day of fighting and a night of being on high alert, the Numidians were anything but information. But the Romans were. The Roman hornblowers gave a signal to launch an all-out attack. The cavalry and legions shouted their battle cry and burst down the hill.
Yeah, taken from 2 sides. That's pretty smart.
The Mauri and Gaetulians were scattered in their encampments, not expecting a sudden coordinated.
Come on. Yeah.
According to Sallust, the Mauri and Gaetulians suddenly being awakened by this strange and terrible sound were incapable of feeling or of arming themselves.
Weird that they weren't ready for that. Like, that's insane. Like, how many soldiers on their side was sleeping and how many was keeping an eye on the Romans? Like, you aren't ready for a counterattack like that.
Or indeed taking any action at all. Their enemy was upon them, and no help was at hand. The shouting and din, the confusion and terror had made them frantic with fear. In the end, they were completely routed. Most of their standards and arms were taken, and more were killed than in any previous battle, for they were too tired and too much dazed by the sunrise to make good their escape.
Damn.
The result of the battle was inconclusive. Although Sallust implies Marius obliterated a large part of Jugurtha's army, what happened next contests this claim. Only a few days later, an even larger army ambushed the Romans, resulting in the decisive Second Battle of Cirta. The end of the war was coming closer, and both Marius and Jugurtha felt it. There would be just one more final, decisive battle.
Okay. Thank you so much to the House of History. This was part 2. We got to see a new battle. We got to meet Sulla. I've heard the name before somewhere, and I also seen his name in the comments on a video. So I think he's going to play a big role in Roman politics. It might be this war he actually starts to like come forward in like politics. Pretty interesting. Yeah, I think Jugurtha is just an absolute idiot. Like, he killed his brother for his territory, and now he's giving away his territory for a war, to win a war, get allies to a war that he started. Like, that's pretty wild. I'm pretty excited to get to the next episode. Thank you so much for watching, guys. If you guys want to check out some more history, I will link up on screen. If you guys want to check out some myths and mythology, I will have it up on screen. Otherwise, the original link to this video to the House of History will be down in the description. See you guys.
Bare feet in the furrowed ground, dust on my tongue, heat bearing down, sun like a hammer on my back, name I was born with, they took that. But my chains flow soft like water, running through this tired soul. You can bind my hands together, you can't cage what rivers know.